Hello, thanks for tuning in. In this episode, I'm discussing the differences across AI services installed and run on top of cloud services. So, everybody tend to consider cloud services equal and exchangeable, but they are not. If you are looking at the modern cloud, you see how each cloud service provider does have a completely different strategy in terms of how integrate the services. If you see, for example, Azure is highly integrated into the identity of Entra ID, and if you look into the design of GCP, you see more an attention towards analytics, BigQuery, and other pipelines in terms of analytics. But if you look at the AWS strategy is more across services, how they provide those services and how many different type of services as a recipe for the different type of business and need to accommodate a cloud service. So each cloud service provider is different, also a number of services, and you see it comparing an AWS with GCP, just of the normal type of services. But when you are talking about AI, there are some differences more towards the way how we design the guardrail, for example, which is more focus on which type of guardrail and integration. So, as my usual, everything can be found for free on my SlideShare, and you just look at the link in the description, and you'll find the SlideShare with the file. You can just download it. So, coming back to the file itself, zooming in. This document was a research on how we can compare these services. My thinking, my way of seeing cloud services is not only where the LLM is run, is which ecosystem is provided, and one big portion of that is the ETL pipeline, the data pipeline that is used. But most of AI solutions are also made of a mix of vector database and other data type, like for example a graph database. So along these 10 pages of report, I tried to streamline. I go through the difference between AWS, GCP, and Azure in terms of how they looks, which kind of services they define for this one, and I'm going to highlight which service is specialized in. If you look at this one, for example, on page 3, AWS feel like assembling an AI system from well-governed services. If you check what I just said about the various cloud services independently from AI, you see that this definition fit what they actually always did with their strategy. GCP feel like operationalizing models and agents on top of data platform. I think GCP have been the one more driving towards the transformation of the BigQuery, and played a lot with the fact to have a Gemini integration and having a Vertex platform. So if I have to say what we found and I'm just mentioned is aligned with my intro where I was speaking about each service, and even in the Azure you see the AI is embedding into the Microsoft-centric workflows, but it means their product catalog in terms also of SaaS services. If I am zooming in, I think the definition of how they integrate the RAG and their vector index is extremely relevant at the time that you design. I always found that ETL gets seen as something on the side. If you create an entire cloud AI service, and you need to decide which provider, you need to see what is the actual model that you are having. Is extremely focused on the identity. Azure is probably the best one, is more on the analytics, and you already have the need for agents. GCP could be probably one option, but the guardrail that Bedrock, for example, is offering are superiors in terms of filter that you can apply in terms of property injection, for example. So I tried to summarize all this one into what is the actual need that you are trying to accommodate with your design. So you need to choose the provider based on what is your actual requirement in terms of business, but also in terms of data. If you look at the overall picture, if you need to integrate a lot of productivity apps, you'll find Azure quite friendly on that design, because it is actually focused on the integration of that. If you are going across a more granular landing zone and the sum up of the overall design on how integrate, probably AWS is more complete. GCP is really focused into their Vertex offering and on the model and data lifecycle, but it is offering also something that a granularity in terms of you can use BigQuery. You are going to pay nothing for the storage, but you pay based on how much get queried. So also the model is changing. If you are moving into more Vertex agent, the pricing is completely different and is more on what you index. So also, what are you going to do with that from an architecture perspective is important, also in terms of scaling. When I designed some solution on GCP, I had a problem that I didn't consider before in AWS, for example. So the summary of everything from an architecture standpoint is pick the cloud where you have the data, where it's easier for you to apply governance, and where you have the lowest friction. Keep the model in terms of cost, risk, latency, and data sensitivity completely different. I would like to add on this one that, for example, if you're looking for an integrated solution on DLP, Azure with Purview could probably offer you something that others need to be more customized. Pilot what you are trying to do, but try to find a standardized pattern like the RAG, the agent. If you're going with the agent, in my opinion, the most solid is the Vertex offering. So here in this table, you get a summary of all layers, the control area, and what each is offering. Each approach from a design perspective in different ways. The role-based access model, for example, in Azure is really standardized across what you are generally using, but in GCP you need to integrate more into token management and more the way how you manage this token, and not differently from AWS, honestly. So the IAM control around agents are, in my opinion, a conversation that need to be seen on how you try to standardize identity for not human. Each is offering something, but you finish into the tokenization as well. So differently in Azure, where you play into the agentic intra side. The guardrail, first of all, guardrail is a bit wide as a terms, because obviously you can have guardrail in terms of data, you have guardrail in terms of DL, DLP controls, you have guardrail and prompt injection. I think the most modular in terms of configuration of application is for sure AWS. I find them way more granular. I consider the runtime of a prompt really mature on GPS, for example, against prompt injection, but I always consider that depends on how you implement it. For example, you can structure responses by JSON and structure and close the responses and have a guardrail already in the way how you implement it. It's not always something that you implement with a cloud service provider itself. Here I think is the most valuable summary from a security architecture, not just on architecture. And as you see, the real difference, how I mentioned here, is AWS is stronger for granular IAM, GCP is stronger for agent identity and governed AI or workflows. With AI workflows, I strictly refer to the Vertex package, and Azure is strongest for integration with SaaS and the Entra ID. From a data protection, I consider the old DLP on Purview enterprise ready in somehow, and some others lacking a bit, but for customer managed keys, private connectivity, audit and logging, AWS is really strong. The AI governance at runtime safety is something that you really need to see how you structure the application. We will end up probably with two different conversations if you run a big LLM or if you want to run some mini model more focused on RAG or GraphDB. That is important because it's something that you need to tailor ad hoc for your own solutioning. I thought it was a different approach. You see a lot of researches in terms of what each is offering, but not many compare. And I think it was a good value, at least from an architectural standpoint, to stress what's the difference between the strategy of each cloud service provider. If you like this content, like and subscribe. It means the world to me. I spend a lot of efforts to create something original and use my own brain to generate new food for thought in terms of a field where AI is evolving every day. It's really difficult also to not end up into a cliche and the general marketing. I try to stay vendor neutral because I think it's the role of any security architect. If you like it, like, subscribe and share it. And as I said before, go on my slide share and you can download for free the entire presentation. I think and I hope you appreciate that. Have a good one. Cheers.